And we are live. Haha. Coming at you from
Kansas.
The podcast zone. It looks like we've got a few people already tuning in. And I do want to say thank you all for joining us this evening. A little bit of information about how this works. We'll do some check-ins. We're going to go over some updates as far as upcoming events and things of that nature. You all need to get your bingo cards, and if you don't know how to do that, you can either sign up at patreon.com/Standing Stone Kennels for as little as $5 per month, or any of the other tiers if you do need additional help training your dog. I know there are already several people here that are patrons and utilize a lot of those different functionality, but you can also become a fan on YouTube. You can try
a new feature.
Yeah, sign up for Team Standing Stone. There are a few people that have set up there, and it is also just $5 a month, and there's a link right there so that you can get a bingo card for this evening. The giveaway, so that we are on top of that.
And Ethan and I are modeling them. So we got our cool new t-shirts. They are not even on the Standing Stone store yet. But we have these blue ones with kind of a vintage look with Hazel again, outlined, silhouetted there. And then we have the green version, which is what Ethan's wearing, that has the Standing Stone logo on the front. And then a big picture of a short hair on the back. We actually have stickers that have that same logo that we were giving out at Game Fair and have given out at other places as well. Ethan's trying to pull it up on the computer so that you can see that.
Should be able to see the green design now, and then the other design. Let's see what Kat's wearing. This is actually Hazel the Huntress, drawn out in here in a retro style and a fun blue shirt. So
that is what is up for grabs tonight for our bingo winner. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll through some check-ins, and then we'll get to some announcements. I need to scroll up to do those, unless you want to do them tonight.
Nah, I can't read. I would be all squint. All right, fine. Here, look at this, guys. Yep, I can see the first one. Hello from Minnesota.
Hey, Aaron. We've got Brian Gaddy also checking in tonight from Colorado Springs. We've got Terry from North Carolina, Tina from Western Colorado. We've got Angelo from Stony Creek, and that is in New York. We've got Michigan Gundog Outdoors. Ola, I am just throwing us out there that I'm assuming Michigan, but I could be wrong. Three Moons Kennels. Been some years since you've been on here. Well, I'm glad you're joining us tonight. Thank you. Gary from Connecticut. Olive and Mark checking in from New York.
New prize one natural ability dog.
Yeah, that's right. And I think Tina's got some Gundog prize ones as well. I thought she did pretty good this weekend. Who else do we have here? Garden City, Kansas, Long Island, New York. Holly, thanks for tuning in from Colorado. Jason from Hope, Indiana. Michigan in the house. Well, I was right. Good assumption. William Bryan from Texas. Hey, from Sky's family. Glad you guys can tune in. Hallam, Nebraska. April, thanks for checking in. And West Virginia, Harry. Keep those check-ins rolling as we go along. It's awesome to see where everyone's from. We do not have Charles or Annie in the house tonight. Charles is headed to Nebraska to do some invitational training and then judging this weekend, so he is not around. So we are trying to do all of the things. Ethan's got his little camera switcher going on to try and help bring some stuff up on screen for you guys. So before we get into our topic of discussion tonight, which is we've got less than 60 days before hunting season rolls around.
August, it's 45 now.
I know.
50. I don't know.
Right in that
math.
60 day mark. So we want to talk to you guys about what we're doing to prep our dogs and prep ourselves.
Well, and a lot of people that do go Montana-esque, I think that opens the 1st. It's brutal typically, but it does open the 1st of September. So
things coming up quick. But we want to talk first about Game Fair. Ethan is going to be at Game Fair this August 8th, 9th, and 10th. I will not be able to go this year, holding down the fort with little kids, and just can't get away, both of us this year. So he'll be there. He'll be at the DT Systems booth the first weekend. So if you want to stop by and say hi, you'll have to head over to DT Systems. Also wanted to mention, do you have any? Oh, and Game Fair, in case you didn't know, sorry. It is at Anoka, Minnesota. It's been there for
a bajillion
ever.
years.
It's been there for a long time. We've gone quite a few years.
It says on the homepage here. Hold on. We don't have to be silly about it. Since 1982. And if you've ever attended the Game Fair, you've probably heard someone announce things similar to this.
So Ethan will be there. Fun. Stop by.
It's a great
Systems
show.
Booth. It's a really great outdoor show. Very, very niche for the market with outdoor expos, dogs, lots of dog stuff. They've got dog seminars.
It's hugely dog focused.
Yep.
So there's fun activities. Bring your dog. Hopefully they have some level of manners so that you can kind of maintain some things. But if you're struggling, stop by the booth. I'd be happy to help walk you through things. For years and years, we brought easy leads, and this year I'm going to be flying up to help run the DT booth. So I don't even have a dog. Yeah. So everybody needs to represent from the area with Standing Stone dogs. You can just take turns in the booth.
Hanging out.
Absolutely.
So Game Fair, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Then the following weekend, we won't be at Game Fair because we are having our last seminar of the season at Standing Stone Kennels.
Sorry, I thought I had it pulled up.
I told you to.
It was on the list.
It was on the list. So our last seminar, it is to get your dog ready for hunting season. So we've been talking a lot about conditioning and getting your dog ready, but this is also going to allow us to talk to you guys about what your dog needs in preparation for taking your dog hunting, whether it's a puppy that needs a bird intro, a gunfire intro, exposure to field hunting, getting some pointing exposure, maybe even just collar conditioning for recall, so that you can have the prerequisites that we really highly recommend to take your dog hunting. And maybe you've got an older dog that's already had a season and they need a little tune-up on whoa training or working with another dog in the field as a brace mate so that they can honor a point or honor a retrieve. So any options that way. We can do water introductions. We've got lots of options. We can work on retrieving drills, all the things. So there are a few spots left. It will be a Friday evening social, and then all day Saturday, and then basically a half day Sunday. We may, depending on what the weather ends up looking like, it has been hot around here lately. We may end up zhuzhing up our start time just a little bit so that we can do all of our intros and make sure that everybody has a game plan, and then we can hit the field right when the sun is up. So we will be sending out a welcome email as well to everybody that is signed up, and then moving forward, anyone else that signs up prior to, and then a last minute shoot a little message on exactly what time we'll be starting. Yeah,
it should go out before the end of the week with the details. Anybody that's attended before, I know there are a couple people that are attending that have been to previous. We have different lodging options available. The normal place that we use that's really, really close was not actually available for this weekend. But one of the other pieces that we haven't done recently is canine field first aid related. So we have built a massive med kit that has a lot of things at the truck. And then we're in the process of trying to put together the smaller you can carry it on you. And we've been testing a number of different things and trying to make sure that we have the right size pack with the right stuff in it that's not too bulky but is actually beneficial to carry on you. So that will be coming, but we'll cover some things like specifics that you should be able to, if you have the med kit, how to use the things within it or how to build something yourself. If you want to do that, it's completely fine. Including how to use a stapler and how to take the staples out and when you should probably just take your dog to the vet, but how to deal with a lot of different things in just regards to, it's nice that I have this med kit, but I don't know how to use anything in it kind of mentality. So it should be a fun one. And then last but not least announcement, there is one hunting spot available on Ethan's schedule, which I have kind of commandeered for a women's hunt. I've invited some ladies that have had their dogs trained at the kennel, and I want to open that up to other people that might be interested to bring their dog, not bring their dog, come hunt with me, come hunt with Jessica, our head trainer at the kennel. Ethan will be there as well to kind of help us around the property. And then we'll be able to talk dogs, run dogs. You'll be able to run your own dogs. If you need help and guidance, we're here for that, as well as it'll be a great opportunity to socialize in the evenings. I know all of us ladies like to have a good time. So a women's hunt, it is going to be November 15th, 16th, and 17th, I believe, are the dates. If you want to pull that back up, please. Yeah, arrive the 13th, hunt 14, 15, 16.
Ah, there we go. That was close.
Arrive the 13th, hunt 14, 15, 16. And the hunt does include your lodging and meals and guide, and you can bring your dogs, like I said, but there will also be extra dogs if there's not enough dog power for the day. You would need to get your own hunting license, bring a shotgun. And it's not, this is something that was already brought up, like, I don't have a lot of experience, I'm new to this. That is what this is actually about. I'm kind of commandeering your thing here, but it is about being able to help people that are green to the process. Ta-da! Okay, we're in the right place. Green to the process, be able to learn. It's not, shouldn't feel like a, ooh, I can't go type of situation. There's going to be a lot of opportunities. As long as you feel comfortable-ish learning, this would be a great environment to do it in. So, Perfect. I think
if you have questions, you can reach out to us at our email, contact@standingstonekennels.com. That'd be the best way to get a hold of us, and we can answer additional questions. If you're interested in the seminar or the hunt or have more questions about Game Fair, definitely reach out, and we will be getting back to those emails basically tomorrow.
100%.
Okay. Well, now it's time to roll into our topic of discussion. Oh, and we forgot to mention, if you have a question that you want to ask, because that is part of this, just go ahead and throw it in the comments. If you want to give it priority, throw a super chat on it. We always answer those first. So we're happy to answer questions as well as talk about our, topic of discussion for the evening.
You got a bunch more check-ins if you want to go through any of those, but...
Yeah, we were right.
I'll start into this. We actually recorded a podcast more specifically about some of the things upcoming, and that will be a bigger deep dive. But if you followed along over the years, we put a lot of emphasis on a number of different things in the preseason category. First and foremost, it is, and I know, just kind of speaking, not to glance over things for new folks that are here, but speaking to a majority of the audience that I do see is here, bird and gun introduction, collar condition for recall, those are the three things that are the bare minimums. If you have anything else on top of that, you should feel good. I have talked to some people more recently, and that's why we wanted to be able to go over this evening. I've talked to people more recently, a handful actually, that have said the words, I'm nervous about the upcoming hunting season because I don't feel like my dog is ready. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Do they come when you call them? Yes. Is it reliable with an e-collar that you can expect that they will come when you call them? Yep. Okay. Have you introduced them to birds? Yes. Live birds that flap around and they have to chase down and catch them? Yep. Okay. Have you shot around them? Yes. With a shotgun? Yes. Okay. Have you taken the next step and are they in the field and have they pointed birds for you? Yep. Then you are leaps and bounds ahead of what you actually need for a dog to be able to experience the first hunting season. Now, the more training that you have, the higher expectations you should be able to have coming into the process. Like, I expect my dog should do a pretty good job listening because I've put more emphasis on obedience training, and we've gone through maybe the natural ability test, or we've run an AKC hunt test category and the dog had to listen even without an e-collar. So all of those kind of things are bonuses. But I have taken, and including last season, Quinn, she had birds around her / introduced to her. She had been shot around, and she was collar conditioned to recall. That is it. She ran around with the other dogs and had fun. It took maybe 2 full days of her getting opportunities on the ground before she even got to a bird on her own. And then by the end of that first trip that she was on, she actually pointed something in like a cedar bush and a bird came out. So all of those things were done with basically no real training leading into it. So if you have anything over that, you are exponentially ahead, and all you need to do is be able to say, hey, remember this is supposed to be fun, and then go have fun with the process and watch your puppy develop and enjoy that. Now, on the flip side of those things, if you have a dog that you just got a prize won in the GDT test, you should have higher expectations than just maybe points a bird out there, okay? So you have to be able to evaluate what dog is in front of you and be able to fairly work with what you have there and expect and have expectations that are fair. Now, moving into the next part, if you have any of those pieces that's done, I cannot stress this enough. 2 things, okay? Roading being one. If you do not have access to this, reach out and we'll come up with something that is creative. But if you have access to some form of either sand or gravel road, dirt road, whatever you want to call it, it's a similar type process, or rock roads, you need something in that category to be able to run your dog on. And that can be on leash next to you. That can be going for walks on the rock. It doesn't really matter. The rock itself, rock, sand, dirt roads, rock roads, those things toughen the dog's pads.
Not asphalt, not cement sidewalks. That is too abrasive. It doesn't move. And if a dog is literally pulling like they would in a roading situation, they're literally just going to abrade their pads off. It's like a giant filing those pads down as they're pulling, and they're going to tear their pads up. They're going to lose pads. So huge difference between roading on rock, gravel, sand, than asphalt, concrete. So keep that in mind. I just had somebody reach out recently about their dog just constantly is blowing their pads, and we had this conversation. I'm like, oh, now I know why. Let's stop doing that and change gears. So
now you can utilize concrete or asphalt in very small doses, and that's what it comes down to is, but this is another general rule of thumb. If you can't put this spot, anybody that's been around small children, bottle fed, or seen someone be fed through a bottle, a baby, I mean, hopefully not a grown human, a baby fed by a bottle, you put a little bit of milk on your wrist because that's a sensitive zone. You can tell, all right, it's not too hot for the baby, generally speaking, right? If you can put your wrist on the concrete like that, and you can go, yeah, I can leave it there. That's fine. Yeah, maybe it's a little warm, but it's not burning, and I can leave it there. Then your dog's probably okay to be out there. If you can't do that,
out there from a heat standpoint, but what I'm talking about is a pulling, dragging.
Hold on. Yeah, hold on. Hopefully, if your dog is on leash on concrete, it's not pulling and dragging you. 3, in the process, we try and minimize the actual pulling when we're doing roading events. Now, they do pull, but that's when they're hooked up to a trailer or they're hooked up harness-wise. So if someone is just walking their dog on, this is what I'm trying to provide, something that's an alternative to the way that we actually do it, which is dogs are on harnesses and they do try and pull and they run fast. Not everybody has access to those things. And if you had listened to the podcast that hasn't come out yet and hasn't even been reviewed yet because I recorded it yesterday, Charles and I had a big discussion about this, which is what, like, creative thinking. How can we help people that don't have a four-wheeler and a gravel road right down there in front of their house? So
I understand. I also remember, and Charles isn't here tonight, but him talking about roading dogs on the ranch, and all the dogs were doing great, and then he's like, I'm just going to tootle down the airstrip real quick and get back to the kennel, and that string of dogs that did that blew all their pads.
Yes. So it is in short periods of time, and it was probably too hot, which is what can be easily overlooked. But big thing being, if you can put your wrist on it, you can do very short periods of walking them or running with them on asphalt or concrete. It would be very small. Now, what does very small mean? A couple 100 yards, maybe. And you have to evaluate. Every dog is going to be different, and they're going to build tolerances with step number 2, which is spraying their pads with Tough Foot. You need to spray pads every single day. Right now, our dogs are in, we started August 1st. They started roading a little bit
It's not
early.
even August 1st yet.
I know. We start it August 1st.
Oh, start it. I thought you said we started August 1st. I'm like, honey, it ain't even August 1st yet.
We start
You should ask him when our anniversary is, guys, because he's nailing it. I'm just messing with you.
It's August 2nd. Are people, the mic's not working? No, I think there was a connection issue. Are we here now? Let me see. Let me check Wi-Fi. Kennel. Yeah, we should be. Hopefully we're here.
Can you guys hear us?
Hopefully.
Yeah, that's what happens when Charles isn't here to moderate, or Annie.
It's getting spicy. They can tell we're grumpy with each other.
Not grumpy, just spicy.
Yeah, spicy. But spray those pads with Tough Foot. We will start the kennel string for the fall on August 1st. That's always the timeline because it gives a solid 45 days of daily spraying their pads with Pad Tough is the product that we can actually get right now. Tough Foot has been unavailable forever and ever and ever. Now, that combined with running on rocks and gravel, which is what we do here early in the morning, it is not about building conditioning of the dog themselves. It is about building conditioning for their pads. That is the most important part. It would be like going hunting and getting blisters on all of your feet, all 2 of them, the first morning, okay? If you put on a brand new pair of boots and you wear a giant blister on the back of your heel and around your big toe and whatever else, then try and hunt for 2 or 3 more days, it is brutal. You can also use Pad Tough on your own feet, just so you know. That's originally what those products were designed for, is people feet. But it's brutal. So we try and help prevent that for our dogs. And as long as, from a me standpoint, I have an advantage. We have a lot of dogs. I generally roll north with a trailer full, which is 8. Okay? I can rotate them and run one for an hour or so to 2 hours, maybe, depending on what the loop is, and then swap the group and run 2 for an hour or so, and then run 2 for an hour or so, and all day until we run out of day from a temperature standpoint, we can have fresh dogs, which allows me to gradually build up our conditioning through the season, which helps us to get out of trying to build conditioning in this heat zone, which is nasty. It cools off pretty soon here, and it's going to start to have cooler mornings and things like that, but we're in the peak of mean seed season, so we try and stay out of big runs where dogs are going to be doing the heavier breathing and things of that nature.
And if we are doing any kind of runs like that, we are going to be wearing outfrost masks to protect them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's a very simple thing to put on and prevent a very huge problem.
Yes. So. As far as like the pad conditioning goes, that's that's huge because, like you were saying, once their pads are blown, it takes a long time for that to heal enough for them to feel comfortable. And some people don't have the luxury of multiple hunting trips and things like that. It's like, oh, this was, we've got 2 trips to South Dakota, or we've got 2 hunting opportunities this year that we really were planning for, and your dog blows its pads the first one out. Well, it's kind of sitting the bench until that heals, or they're gimping and limping around and not really getting much out of it, or introducing the potential for infection. So pads, really important, but also just physical conditioning, really important, because I was talking today about if I was going to run a 5K and did no prep for it and I went out and ran it, I probably could get it done. It would not be easy because I'm not a runner and I'm not in that great a shape for running, but the next day I would be so sore. I'd be sore. I would not recover. I would feel like crap. And we're asking our dogs to do that, except much more than a 5K. They're running a lot more than that. And so we need to make sure that they are conditioned so that they can not just do it one time. They can repeat that for a hunting trip and then have time to recover, yes, but then be able to hunt during the entire season.
100%. And here's a fun story that is not so fun. I went on a hunting trip we get a lot of pushback in this, like, oh yeah, well, it's not that big a deal on the prairies, so you can do your little roading trick and you're fine. To explain the power of pad development and toughening them and roading and what that does, I took a string of dogs that had been roading and prepared to West Central Texas, which is like super rocky country. And the guide that we had lined up ground for us and things of that nature said, oh, you guys are bringing dogs. You need to make sure that you have boots, which I hate boots. They suck. All of the good boots suck. They're either durable because they're rubber, which means they have no breathability or anything else. The dog's pads get super sweaty. If you finally get them tight enough that they stay on, generally you're at risk of
too tight around their leg.
Too tight, yes. And then if you don't have them tight enough, they're eventually going to run out of them, and then you just lose boots all over the place. People talk about making them out of duct tape. People talk about Lewis boots, or you name it. They're all great products for what they are, but I hate using them. It's always a pain. And dogs take a little while to run in them. That's not the big issue. It doesn't take them that long to figure it out. But they do take a little bit to get used to, so you can't just throw them on the morning of and hope that they don't, run around like they can't figure out how their legs work anymore. But the entire string is good to go. Now, we got this dog back in.
The entire string, without boots, took them down, no issues.
Correct. Thank you.
Hunted the whole time. No pads were blown. 0
issues. Except for the one dog who just came in from being a couch queen. And I thought, surely, I didn't even think of it, honestly, at the time, that, I had done all of this pad prepping. I know it's important, but I didn't think that it was going to be that big of an issue for her to come along. She had been through the program. She'd been trained. She's a really nice dog. And literally the first morning, she made about an hour and a half loop and got to the point where it's like, I'm like, what is going on? Oh, my goodness. You have blown all of your pads. They're just completely shot, blistered up, gone. So she was done for the entire trip, which we hunted 5 days down there. And so then she just got to hang out on the trailer because she was much too sore to be able to keep up with it. So just an example of how powerful the roading is, even in environments with rocky soil and environments that have the potential for most people to say it's impossible to run dogs here. They can't handle it. So
I agree. And then last that I would talk about is we are talking about heat conditioning the dogs a little bit. So
correct.
We just did a re-release of a combo podcast about heat tolerance and beating the heat and being an advocate for your dog. So I'm not saying go out, push your dog until they go through heat exhaustion to prep them for hunting season. Absolutely not. However, getting them heat conditioned to an extent is important. Charles is working on that right now with the 3 dogs that are going to the invite. So Shock, Doc, and Splash, they're going to be running the very beginning of September in Iowa. It's going to be hot and not sure exactly when they're going to be running in the field. So he wants to make sure that they are as prepared, conditioned, heat conditioned as he can, and doing it safely to make sure that they're ready. And that's the middle of September in Iowa. We were just talking, you were saying that Montana, the beginning of September for hunting season, you're going to be grouse hunting like the week after the invitational. You're going to be starting in South Dakota. It's still going to be hot, and we want to make sure that the dogs are as heat conditioned and as tolerant of that as they can be so that they can perform as well. However, we don't want them to get pushed, so we have to advocate for them. I know a lot of times when we're grouse hunting throughout the entire beginning of grouse season, we're only getting a few hours in.
Correct.
We're not hunting till 4 or 5 in the afternoon. It is still way too hot. If we get a few hours in the morning prior to lunchtime, we're happy, and usually that's all it takes to where we're hunting to get our limit. But
easy now. It's
been good hunting. However,
you have a good guide.
I do have a good guide. However, I even remember last year was super excited to bring Nix out. He'd been hunting, conditioning, all of that, but took him out. But he got so hot, and we were a ways from the truck, and we just had to walk him back until him and Shooter was out there, and they were a little bit older dogs. Probably didn't get as much conditioning as some of the younger dogs did, and it was just supposed to be this one little loop. Well, they got on some grouse, and then they're chasing and, getting themselves overheated a little bit more. So all those pieces combined, we had to say, hey, too hot, walking you back to the truck now.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest difference between the two and the type of hunting and the things is a lot of this early season hunting that we're talking about is primarily big open country prairie hunting, and you can try and hunt around water tanks or ponds, or you can try and hunt to a pond and then back. Things like that are possible sometimes, but not always. And at the invitational, they are going to be expected to run through that 90-degree weather. It's going to be ridiculous, but you're talking they might run 5 to 10 minutes before they hit the next water tub and then take a little bit of time to cool them off. And in that specific environment, early in the morning when it's cooler, they're going to keep running and do what they can, but they don't want to kill a dog. So they have to take, precautions in a sense, which Charles was even telling me that they refresh water tubs regularly with either ice or fresh water
so
to
it's
keep
not
them cool.
Hot water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good.
But every, maybe 15 minutes, depending on where the dogs are at, because you're also mixing in water from bottles that you're carrying. But those dogs have the opportunity to cool off regularly. We don't have that. I only can carry so much water, and we maybe, like I say, we could hunt out to a pond and cool down a little bit. But even so, most of those ponds are small. They're not deep water. They might be 90 degrees themselves. Maybe not quite that hot, but they're not much of a cool down category.
Basically bath water. Yeah.
Yes. And so all of that being said, lots of things to think about coming up into the next, be prepared as much as you can, but don't overthink it. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
But
it is fun.
The better you do conditioning your dogs in, the better off you're going to be all the way around.
So there were some questions that popped up. I'm trying to find. Oh, here's one from Hunter F. Is right now a good time to start a force fetch program with a 1-year-old puppy with hunting season just around the corner? So that's a really good question, and it really depends on a couple of factors. One, how much time you have to commit to the process. You get out of it what you put into it. If your dog came here to the kennel for training, the trained retrieve process is a 6 to 8 week process in and of itself. So, if you're not planning on hunting until, November, depending on when your season opens and things like that, then you're definitely going to have time to start and finish the process. I would say, depending on your dog's natural retrieving desire too. If you've got a dog that doesn't retrieve at all, this will at least allow you to have a dog that is going to be able to handle retrieving for the season. If you've got a dog that likes to retrieve, it's just maybe a little sloppy, or they only bring it halfway back, and you only get partway through the trained retrieve before you start hunting them, that's okay too. Hex didn't finish his trained retrieve before he went hunting during that season. So because he was a really great natural retriever. I mean, he's out there retrieving two hand during the season without finishing the trained retrieve. So
and there's a lot of a couple times that he didn't, but I have to also fall into the same category of just understanding he isn't done. So I just say, all right, good boy. And then we move on. You know, that's it.
You can't have like super high expectations. You can't ask them to do what they haven't finished the training for. So a couple of factors that are involved. So if you've got that 2-month window to start and finish it prior to hunting season, awesome. If you've got a dog that is a really good natural retriever or likes to retrieve now, you can just also look at attempting this after the season, see how they do. Sometimes just more exposure, more opportunities will solidify a retrieve. We like to try lots of different tips and tricks with dogs, and sometimes it's just a matter of taking them hunting, giving them opportunities, a little competition with another dog that's on the ground, and they become a better retriever just naturally through the season. Or they get a little sloppier. They don't do as much retrieving. They're like, on to the next one, ready for the next bird to point. So it really depends on your dog. They can get a little better. They could get a little sloppier. But either way, you can also tune that up after the season. So my biggest recommendation would be don't miss out on the hunting season to do a trained retrieve. You don't want your dog to lose the opportunities to get out, use their nose, find birds, point birds, especially as a 1-year-old dog. This first season, which most likely is their first season since they're a year now, they would have been like only a couple weeks old last year. You don't want them to miss their first season because you're trying to get this formal retrieving work done. They're going to gain so much more from getting out there, getting exposure, real life hunting situations than they would gain from holding off, getting those opportunities and getting a trained retrieve done.
I agree with you completely. The last piece that I would add to that would be check out our online course. Did you say that? I
didn't. No. Okay. Good.
Check
good
out
option.
our online course available at standingstonekennels.com. We have the entire process broken out. Now, we also have YouTube videos online. This is a guide to those YouTube videos with additional instruction and information, and all of them in one place in order to make the process simple. The next piece is it does have a link that you can schedule a 15-minute call with me. I will sit and watch your session and coach you through the process. And I really need to do a better job from a marketing standpoint on this, because there isn't a single person that has followed through with that hasn't said, this is the most beneficial thing that I have ever done from a training standpoint, is having someone coach me while I'm actively doing the training, because the trained retrieve process is probably the largest learning curve of the entire development of a bird dog. A lot of it is based around exposure and developing natural ability. This is not. It is a teaching, coaching process for the dog that we try and help them to learn how to pick something up and hold it and do that on cue. It's different. Every dog throws up walls. They all throw up walls at different places. They all take different types of finesse to help them through it. And until you've done about 1,000 of them, you don't necessarily know what to try. And it can be difficult and it can be frustrating, and it doesn't have to be. So if you are interested in doing it, please give that a look. StandingStoneKennels.com. And then the courses tab is right up there. Kat put that together. She did a fantastic job. And it's worth its weight in gold if you're going to do this at home yourself.
Which actually, this is really funny. We had recently just on the 16th, so like 2 weeks ago, got a email from a gentleman named Mickey. Said, Kat Ethan got Jed retrieving like a champ. I have trained bird dogs for 40 years, but never had broken one to force fetch. Your step-by-step video was worth every penny. Thank you for producing such great content and your contribution to the bird dog world. So just out of the blue, somebody sent an email message through our contact form letting us know that trained retrieve course was incredibly valuable. They've been training dogs for 40 years, and the step-by-step program had their dog retrieving like a champ. So those are really great pieces and feedback, and we like to share those with you guys so that you know, hey, not only is it something that we utilize to train our own personal dogs and all the dogs here at the kennel, but also people can follow those step-by-steps from home and get great results. There was a question about gun shyness down here. Scroll down a little bit more.
There's another question here. Brian says, do you do the pad treatment with all of the dogs in the kennel? We don't, actually, because of the fact that there's a lot of variables there. But if you remind me, I think that Weller would be more than capable of following through with a lot of it. So you just need to shoot Jessica an email, and that will help. And I will touch base with her, but please also follow up with shooting Jessica an email, and we'll include him a little bit, at least see how he does with the roading process, and at a minimum, we can start spraying his pads. So,
question from Lyris McGinnis. One of my friends was training a lab puppy, and he introduced his pup to gunfire probably incorrectly. She's older now and retrieves birds, just not on a hunt. She's gun shy. Is that fixable at this point? So,
short answer, yes.
Probably a little bit of a longer process. Fixing dogs with gun sensitivity issues is definitely more difficult than doing it properly, and there's a lot of ways to do it properly. Basically, you need to find something that's super exciting for that dog, whether it's birds, food, retrieves. We have great success with all of those things to help dogs. We've used bumper launchers to help dogs get over gun sensitivity.
Hold up. Is that
Aaron?
Is that a typo?
I don't think so. $99.99. Thank you so much for the super chat. That was incredibly generous and not necessary. Thank you, Kat and Ethan, for the whole puppy experience this past weekend. Your place is beautiful, and you both were so hospitable. You both, plus Jessica and Sam, did such an amazing job on a busy day. Thank you again so much. Well, thank you so much for coming down. I know that it had been a long time coming and waiting on a puppy. I'm really glad we were able to get you a puppy out of the Quest Thunder litter, since it was Quest's last litter, and I know how much you guys were excited about getting a puppy out of her, especially since meeting her, because you've met us and gone to game fair and things. It was a very busy weekend. We had the Suvi litter going home and the Quest litter going home on the same day, since they were only a couple days apart. So it was a full house, to say the least. So thank you, everyone that was there, for your understanding and patience during that process, because sending 14 puppies home definitely took a little bit of time to make sure that we answered questions and went through everything. But so thank you so much, Aaron. Back to the gunfire. So doing a proper gunfire introduction is really important. So first, we want to make sure that we're doing it properly. We want to make sure that that puppy is excited about things prior to introducing gunfire. We want to make sure that they're so excited about whatever it is, food, bumpers, birds, retrieves, that they're focused on that and not the gunfire. Once we make sure that they're not even paying attention to the gunfire, we can start generalizing that gunfire through other training sessions when we're doing positive pigeon drills, homing pigeons and launchers, and then randomizing that gunfire as well, so that it is not always associated with a bird, because if you're out there hunting, there's going to potentially be times where gunfire is going off in another field or nearby, or one of the other hunters has a shooting opportunity and you don't necessarily have one, but your dog doesn't see that bird situation and they hear that gunfire. And we want to make sure that even though it's not necessarily associated with the bird contact, that they're still not we have two little boys that are now causing distractions, so I apologize for that. We'll have to be wrapping up our live stream here fairly soon, but It's on me there? Okay, perfect. So doing a gunfire introduction right is going to save you a lot of headache in fixing problems in the future. However, it can be done, and we have had a lot of success with dogs with gun sensitivity issues, gun shyness, and getting past that. It usually does take a little bit longer than doing a normal gunfire introduction standpoint because we can't push. This is one of the places, not that you want to push in any place of training, but you definitely can't push in this point. You have to take it at the dog's own pace. If you try and push, you're just going to break things more and have more issues to overcome. So going at their pace, when they're ready for more, you're able to add additional gunfire or closer gunfire, or even gunfire at all. So it's important to work at their pace, and until you start working with the dog, you never know what their pace is going to be. So it's kind of catch-22. It can be done. It usually takes a little bit longer, and we don't really know how long it's going to take, actually. So let me see if there was a couple other questions. And again, apologies for the little bit of distraction there. Gary said he just joined Patreon for some in-depth help. Thank you so much. Tina, yes, you've been using Patreon for a while. It is awesome. It definitely helps a lot of people reach their goals. What does heat conditioning look like for us? So basically, working the dogs into warmer temperatures slowly and evaluating how they're reacting to that temperature. Because if you take a dog that hasn't had any heat conditioning and then you just throw them into a really hot situation, they're going to be gassed really quickly. Even with, and I'm sure you guys probably talked about this in one of your other podcasts, Ethan and Charles have been rolling out the podcasts. They haven't been edited yet and released, but they've been talking a lot. Even the dogs that Charles has been working on and will be continuing to work on heat conditioning, not only for the invitational, but also for the guiding season in South Texas, that conditioning, it doesn't even come close to fully preparing them for the temperatures that are going to be down in South Texas and the humidity that's going to be down in South Texas. So we try and do our best, but there's still going to be additional, not only conditioning and getting them kind of the exposure to the humidity and letting them adjust. But honestly, you kind of sometimes just have to wait until those humid, hot days break, and then you can actually hunt. So,
the other side of it that we've been doing is roading them last. So generally the roading starts in the dark here, and there are a few lights on the front of the four-wheeler, but right at the start of light or just before, depending on exactly how hot it is. Now, we do have a little bit of a reprieve coming, highs in the 80s and lows in the 60s, which is wild the next few days coming up.
And then it'll be back to hot.
Then it'll be back to hot, exactly. But so the dogs that are prepping invitational-wise are doing the roading portion last, and that, again, is a pretty minimal. It's a half mile down, half mile back of controlled running. The other side of it is in the even higher heats of the day, they go on short walks without the four-wheeler, so they're not getting pushed additional pressure of that, which it always adds excitement to, because generally speaking, we would do free runs or exercise runs off of an ATV. There's a lot of dogs, and it's easy to kind of rotate through that way, but you can control a lot better how to regulate they are getting too hot or not too hot when you're just walking with them. So we just go on short walks and keep them wet, ears, head, sometimes their back, but their ears and head are the biggest part of keeping wet from an evaporative cooling standpoint. And then monitoring. Once they start to get warm, not too hot, but once they start to show signs, I'm getting warm, we go ahead and just clip them up and walk back so that they are getting the exposure to it and building into it without tipping the scale into way too hot and causing problems. So just gradual exposure.
One other comment that was made by Three Moons Kennels, I find building overall confidence helps with gunfire in the home, in the town, all over. And I couldn't agree with you more. We talk about dogs that are well socialized and also mentally stable typically aren't going to be dogs that have gun sensitivity. Aren't typically going to be dogs with gun sensitivity issues. Even if you do all the things wrong with your gunfire introduction, you take them to the shooting range and you just stake them out and blast away, those dogs that are really well socialized, mentally stable, things don't startle them, they have a really good response, they recover quickly to anything that does startle them, they're going to be fine even with a messed up gun intro. But dogs that aren't as well socialized, aren't as confident, don't recover quickly from startled responses, they're going to really need a proper, slow, steady gunfire introduction so that we don't cause problems. So knowing your dog, reading your dog, recognizing startle responses and things like that will allow you to, am I looking at that camera or am I back to that one?
We're back to here.
Okay. I've been staring off over here. Will help prepare your dog. So knowing what kind of dog you had. But yes, building confidence is a really important factor there as well.
100%. We have another one here. There was hold up one here. There's one here that's interesting. So do you do the same with the roading with the cockers?
Brian.
And the answer to that is, generally speaking, no, because of the fact that they're too small for the setup that we have. The chains are too short, and if the chains are long enough, they can get into the four-wheeler without different modifications. So we haven't come up with a good process with that. We take them without masks on, and we walk them up and down the road. Again, they get off the road, but they get back on the road, and it turns into they don't get very far from you very often. I mean, they do go out and venture a little bit, but they do spend a good portion of the time on the road. So they go for walks with their masks, but even now,
they do a little foot racing, they get on the road and they run a little bit because they're competitive little pups. So
absolutely. And again, though, I mentioned this is kind of the peak of the main season. They're even more prone to it from a foot standpoint. They get them between their toes because they have the extra coat or hair. So any coated dogs need to be paying attention to those kind of things as well.
Do a lot of additional grooming with them.
Correct.
After all their field runs.
So it is a little bit of a zone where they're working more on yard work, even though it is a thing that they need to prep for hunting season. It's kind of risk versus reward category. A big portion of what we're continuing to tighten up and develop right now, though, is sit to whistle, steadiness work. We're trying to build on that to ultimately have a steady crew of cockers as well. And healing.
And ultimately, the cockers are not covering the ground as much as the short hairs from a hunting standpoint because they are healing through the field and just acting as strike dogs once those dogs do go on point. Sure, they tear around like little crazy cockers, flushing and then chasing down some retrieves, but they are not hunting like what the short hairs are. So from a conditioning standpoint, that allows us to have a little more time to keep their conditioning going when we get to Texas.
Absolutely.
But there was a question from E. Fassler, and I might have pronounced your name wrong, sorry. My puppy has a hard bite. He has caught a few quail, and he tries to eat them. Love the videos, and I just joined your versatile dog training program. That's awesome. Thanks for following along with the course. I would say if your puppy is chewing up quail, move to a bigger bird. So my suggestion would be find chucker or...
How old is the puppy helps.
So it's true. How old is your puppy? They did just get the course. But
what you just mentioned is all valid, but if you can throw in there so we've got a little more info on how old your puppy is. So
yeah, but just a typical thing, if we've got a small, really tender, easily chewable quail.
Quail are typically the worst.
They're going to be one of the birds that incite dogs to be hard-mouthed. So moving to chucker or pigeons would be a better bird, even a frozen bird, or taking wings and wrapping them around a bumper from a retrieving standpoint so that we can mitigate that hard mouth, chomping, chewing, rolling, tenderizing the birds. We want to try and eliminate those bad habits now so that they don't carry over to all types of birds.
The other side of it would be the key is those bigger birds are harder for them to mutilate. If we have issues with mouthing or hard mouthing, it does typically relate to a quail type situation. Generally speaking, the bigger birds are drastically easier. So 15 weeks, yeah, you're just in the puppy zone. We don't need to be discussing formal retrieving work or a trained retrieve process at this point. It is just kind of working through. I would go to, from a bumper standpoint as well, hard bumpers. So anything, as long as you move up in a category that doesn't prevent them from wanting to retrieve, the retrieving desire is more important than fixing the hard mouthing, as silly as that may sound. We don't want to prevent them from wanting to retrieve, but we do want to make it to where the chewing and munching and rolling and crunching is hard. Now, I will ask, and you said primarily with quail, I'm assuming those quail are dead. This is a big assumption. But then the other question that I do ask is, are you playing fetch with balls?
That's another good question.
So,
or does your puppy have lots of access to plush squeaky toys that they like to go chew, chew, squeak, squeak, mouth, mouth, destroy? So if those things are going on, we got to get rid of the squeaky toys and the plush toys and no tennis balls.
We have a bingo.
Whoop, whoop. Gonna have a new t-shirt.
Check that while we went on that too.
Gotta make that bigger. Is that what?
Mention of Aiden and Kate. Yeah, they're here.
They're here.
You rolled your eyes at me. That one's a given. It doesn't matter what night it is. Standing Stone Podcast. We talked about doing podcasts, hunting in Texas and cockers. And I believe that is a bingo.
Yep. Nice.
We got some other people that are close.
Very close. What was this one? I wanted to see how close that one was. Nope. Nope. What was that one? Nope. Didn't do that one either. A couple close ones, though. Cool.
Yeah, very close. Awesome. Nice job. If we get another one before this is over, we'll give away both new shirts. But at this point, Brian, you have your choice. And just remind us when you come out, and you can pick it up when you come to get your dog.
Yep. Whichever shirt and size, let us know, and we'll set one aside. Not that we're probably going to be out by the time you pick up Weller, but just in case so.
We don't have any additional information so far from the puppy hard mouthing, but another statement here. All right, getting a 7-week-old poodle pointer beginning in October of this year. Shouldn't plan on bringing the puppy out to just the Nevada desert while we are hunting. Not with us, but at the truck only. 100%, 1,000%, 1,000,000%. Bring the puppy on the adventure. Tease them at the tailgate with the birds that you get, and let them get out of the truck and go potty and run around and hang out on a chain gang and get used to eating on the road. And doing all of those things are huge, especially in the process of when the dogs are in that spongy development zone, which is puppyhood on. It's insane how amazing dogs that are developed on the road and things like that are. It is one thing that we miss, I believe, in our training program today, is when we started, every single dog, every single day, not every single day, but almost every single day, was in the trailer on the road. We had to travel, usually, we had a couple options that were closer, and then
20, 30 minutes, though, was not a big deal. That was what we would have to drive to get to the training grounds that we were going to be using back when we were in Northwest Kansas. So all the dogs that were headed to the field loaded up on the truck and the trailer and headed out to the field with us and got let out multiple times and got their training session. So it was really important that they knew how to travel and go potty and all of those things. But that early exposure that you can offer your puppy now, that things that we're going to expect our dogs to do as they're older, is really important to expose them to young. So traveling, heading out on a stakeout, eating on the road, all those things. So absolutely. Just don't take your puppy to the field for guns blasting away and the overwhelmingness of a hunting situation if they haven't been exposed to those things yet properly. But the trailer and the truck and rolling around that way, completely fine.
100%. Here's I'm in Hutch. Would you guys train a Brittany?
Absolutely. And we have trained Brittany's before.
Not to mention, if depending on what level of training, you just need to reach out to us. We do have some availability, maybe October, but we do, like we mentioned earlier, I don't know if you were here then.
We have a seminar coming up
seminar
in August, the 15th, 16th, and 17th. So the 15th would be kind of a social hour, get to know everybody, find out goals. And then the Saturday and Sunday, we'll be doing a lot of training as well as some field first aid. But that would be great, as well as people that are local or close. Sometimes even people that aren't local and close can come out and schedule some consults if you want to do a few things like bird intros, gun intros, collar conditioning.
And
evaluations.
Yep.
We can definitely work on getting you on the schedule for those as well.
So reach out to us, Carlos. We would love to help you. And then... at what age would you recommend introducing gunfire? My last 2 pups were at different times. Did it based off of feel, but what's the correct time frame? Based off of feel is more the way to do it. When the dog is bold and confident around a lot of things, that's a big part of it. We utilize birds for gunfire introductions a lot because birds usually strike a whole new level of drive and desire. And we can have that gunfire happen in the background that they don't even pay attention to, and that would be our goal. You hear a blank pistol pop. Now, the biggest thing that I want to say with this is don't utilize rifles of any kind, and don't utilize pistols, generally speaking. The sounds that come from them are different than what a shotgun is. We use a primer pistol, which is a 209 primer, makes a very dull-ish popping noise instead of even a 22 going pew. That longer drawn out, it throws weird echoey things sometimes depending on where you're at, and I've seen more issues created with those style of rounds. Now there's also 22 acorn pistols that you can get, and that again falls in a different category. It's a very small round. It just makes a pop noise.
Similar to what's used in a dummy launcher. So
yeah, absolutely.
But one thing that I want to mention too from an age standpoint is we utilize birds or bumpers to incite that prey retrieve drive, get them really excited. So making sure your puppy's actually old enough to track and follow and watch those retrieves and those marks and those throws is also really important. So not trying to do that too young where they lose what you're throwing and they can't focus on it.
I would say on average for our dogs, it's between 4 and 6 months, depending on what they're doing and
what we're doing.
Yeah. It's not something we rush, and we just want to make sure that we've got a lot of drive and desire built, and we have a bold, confident puppy. So,
yeah, absolutely.
All right, folks, we have hit the limit for this evening. We really appreciate everybody joining us tonight. It was had a lot of fun chatting, answering questions, and we hope that the talk about preseason prep was helpful. Outside of that, do you have anything else?
Nope. Hope to see some of you guys at our seminar. Ethan can see you at Game Fair, and I'd love a few of you women to join me on the hunt. So until next time, or one of these upcoming events, I'm Kat the dog trainer.
I'm the guy with the pink gun. We'll see you in the next one.